Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we'll be discussing cholinergic drugs, also called as parasympathomimetics or cholinomimetics. I've made this PPT in which all the important points are being highlighted. I can't use book directly because of some copyright issues. So I'll be providing this PPT in my Telegram group. If you're not in my Telegram group, please go to the description box. You'll find my Telegram link over there. So starting with the chapter, the nervous system is mainly divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, and peripheral nervous system is further divided into autonomic and somatic. Somatic means body, it means overall all the skeletal muscles. So the skeletal muscle tone is being regulated by the somatic nervous system. In autonomic nervous system, we are mainly talking about the heart, smooth muscles and exocrine glands. So all the visceral functions are being regulated by the autonomic nervous system. Now this autonomic nervous system is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. So sympathetic nervous system includes the thoracolumbar region, T1 to L3, T1, T2, L1, L2 and L3, and the preganglionic fibers are short, postganglionic fibers are long, and the parasympathetic it is located in the craniosacral region, that is cranial nerves 3, 7, 9, 10, S2, S3 and S4. Here the opposite is happening, the preganglionic fibers are long and postganglionic fibers are short. So these are some factual points which you have to remember. Now we'll discuss the sympathetic stimulation and parasympathetic stimulation differences. Sympathetic stimulation is mainly like a flight or flight reactions. So what will happen? Increase in heart rate, increase in force of contractility of the heart, mydriasis, that is dilatation of the pupil, bronchodilation, so that we can get more airflow, we can get more O2, and GI motility decreases because we don't want any peristalsis while we are running, etc. And sphincter tone increases. As sphincter tone is increased, it will prevent the defecation processes. So that's what happens in a flight or flight reactions or sympathetic stimulation. In parasympathetic stimulation, just the opposite is happening, that is decrease in heart rate, decrease in force of contractility, miosis, in which there is constriction of the pupil, bronchospasm, and GI motility increases and sphincters are relaxed so that defecation can proceed easily. So let's start with the main part of our chapter, that is the cholinergic system. Now the main neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. How is acetylcholine made? Choline plus acetyl-CoA in the presence of choline acetyltransferase, that is CHAT, will give acetylcholine. Simple, choline plus acetyl-CoA in presence of CHAT will give acetylcholine. So acetylcholine is stored in vesicles and released into the synaptic cleft. Stored in the vesicles and released in the synaptic cleft, they interact with the cholinergic receptors and activate them. Also another point, that in the synaptic cleft they can be hydrolyzed or damaged or destroyed by the acetylcholine esterase enzyme, that is ACHE enzymes. So this was the basics. Now we come to the cholinergic receptors. So cholinergic receptors can be muscarinic and nicotinic. Muscarinic has few of their subtypes, that is M1, M2, M3 and M4 and M5. M4 and M5 are mainly in the CNS. We don't have to discuss much of that. M1 found in gastric glands, autonomic ganglia, CNS. M2 heart. M3 smooth muscles, exocrine glands and endothelial cells. So what is all the functions of these receptors? M1 and M3 are mainly one of the same. So they initiate the response by increasing IP3 and DAG, and increases learning and memory, promotes glandular secretion and smooth muscle contraction. So they are mainly responsible for the contraction of the smooth muscles. If we talk about M2, which is present in heart, it is initiating its response by opening of the potassium channels and decreasing the secondary messenger, that is SCAM. So what it is doing is hyperpolarization, and in hyperpolarization there is always depression of SA node, AV node, atrial and ventricular contractions. Now comes our nicotinic receptors. Nicotinic receptors are of two types, MN and NM. NN are found in autonomic ganglia, adrenal medulla, and NM neuromuscular junction. So NN it works by opening of ion channels that are sodium or potassium, and they do the depolarization and release of adrenaline and noradrenaline from the adrenal medulla. And the NM receptors which are present in the neuromuscular junction, they also happen to initiate cellular response by opening of ion channels, and they'll also do depolarization and skeletal muscle contractions. So if I revise the cholinergic receptors with you, there are two types, muscarinic and nicotinic. Muscarinic has 5 subtypes, that is M1, M2, M3, M4 and M5. M4 and M5 are mainly found in the CNS, M1 mainly in the gastric glands, CNS autonomic ganglia, M2 heart, M3 smooth muscles, exocrine glands and endothelial cells. M1 and M3 are interrelated, and they work by increasing the IP3 and DAG, the second messengers, and initiates the learning, memory and glandular secretion and smooth muscle contraction. Whereas M2 is present in the heart, it works by opening of the potassium channels and decreases the CAMP secondary messenger. Hyperpolarization occurs where there is depression of the SA node, AV node, atrial contractions and ventricular contraction. Nicotinic receptors with two subtypes present, NN in autonomic ganglion adrenal medulla and NM in the neuromuscular junction. As NN are present in the ganglion medulla, there will be release of adrenaline and noradrenaline from the adrenal medulla by the opening of channels, that is sodium and potassium channels. And NM, that is present at neuromuscular junction, will also be happen to initiate cellular response by opening of ion channels and promote depolarization and skeletal muscle contraction. Now we come to the major headings. Whenever we talk about the cholinergic drugs or any of the drugs, what we have to talk about is the classification of drugs, its mechanism of action, its normal actions, what it does on the various physiological systems, its pharmacokinetics, how it is absorbed, how it goes about, what is its bioavailability, its uses, all the therapeutic uses, all the conditions in which we use these drugs, the special features of some drugs, in which we'll discuss about individual drugs, then contraindication in which we don't have to use the drug, and the ADRs, that are the side effects or the adverse drug reactions, and the last, the drug interactions, when there are two or more drugs present, how they will interact with each other. So these are the major headings which you have to cover in any type of drug. Okay, now let's start with the cholinergic drugs. Cholinergic drugs can be of two types, cholinergic agonist and anticholinesterase. So what we can do, we can provide cholinergic agonist which will just mimic the action of acetylcholine, because we have to at the end increase the acetylcholine only. Or we can give anticholinesterase, because cholinesterase were damaging the acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft. So if we give anticholinesterase, then there will be accumulation of acetylcholine, which is what we want. So cholinergic agonists are of two types, alkaloids and cholinesters. So acetylcholine, methacholine, carbachol, buthanol, these are all cholinesters, and muscarine, pilocarpine, ericoline, these are alkaloids. And anticholinesterase, they can be of two types, reversible and irreversible. In reversible, we have carbamates and non-carbamates. Carbamates like physostigmine, neostigmine, pyridostigmine and rivastigmine, and non-carbamates like edrophonium, tacrine, donepezil, galantamine. Then irreversible, carbonates like carbaryl, organophosphates like diflos, malathion, diazinon. Now we'll discuss these one by one. So number one is cholinergic agonist. Acetylcholine is the prototype. So produce actions similar to that of acetylcholine by directly interacting with the cholinergic receptors. So this is the mechanism of action of these cholinergic agonists, that they are directly interacting with the cholinergic receptors and they produce actions similar to that of acetylcholine. So what are those actions? There are muscarinic actions, nicotinic and CNS actions. In muscarinic actions, we can see heart, in which M2 receptor is present. There will be hyperpolarization, decreased heart rate, decreased force of contraction, decreased AV conduction. In blood vessels, M3 receptors are present. Nitric oxide will be released, and nitric oxide is responsible for vasodilatation. In GIT, M3 receptors are present. There will be increased tone, increased peristaltic movements. increased GI secretions, and the sphincter will relax. So when there is increased in the peristaltic movements and the movement of the GIT motility is increased and the sphincter is relaxed, it will lead to defecation. Then bladders have receptors M3, contraction of detrusor muscle, and trigone and sphincter will relax. So when the detrusor muscle is contracted and the sphincter is relaxed, it will lead to urination. Then in bronchi, M3 receptors present, contracts muscles, that is the bronchospasm, and it is therefore contraindicated in asthmatic patients. So all the asthmatic patients, if they use this cholinergic agonist, there will be bronchospasm, there will be contraction, they won't be able to breathe, and therefore these type of drugs are contraindicated in such type of patients. In exocrine glands, there will be all the secretions will be increased, that is salivary, lacrimal, sweat, bronchial, gastric, GI secretions, every secretion will be increased. In eye, where there are M3 receptors present, there will be contraction of the sphincter pupillae, this is known as miosis, and ciliary muscles will also get contract. The intraocular tension or intraocular pressure will decrease, therefore it is used in glaucoma patients. It's open the trabecular meshwork around the Schlemm's canal and facilitates the drainage of the aqueous humor. This is how it is reducing the intraocular tension. So let me revise all the muscarinic actions. It shows the muscarinic actions in heart, blood vessels, GIT, bladder, bronchi, exocrine glands, and eye. In heart, there are M2 receptors, and there is hyperpolarization occurring, in which there is decreased heart rate, decreased force of contractility, decreased AV conduction. In blood, M3 receptors, vasodilatation. In GIT, M3 receptors, defecation. Bladder, M3, urination. Bronchi, M3, bronchospasm. Exocrine glands, increased secretion. And eye, used in glaucoma, and meiosis and ciliary muscles are also contracted. So nicotinic actions. Autonomic ganglia, high dose of acetylcholine given after atropine, it causes tachycardia and increase in BP. Skeletal muscles, there will be twitching, fasciculations, and maybe after some time paralysis. And in CNS, there are no central effects, as because this acetylcholine cannot penetrate the blood-brain barrier. Now we come to another cholinergic agonist, that is the pilocarpine. So first we had discussed the acetylcholine, which was the prototype. Now we are discussing the pilocarpine. So pilocarpine is also showing predominant muscarinic actions. It is used in the treatment of open angle and acute congestive glaucomas. How it is helping in the glaucoma? Because it contracts the sphincter pupillae, which is miosis. They increase the tone of ciliary muscles, that is the contraction of the ciliary muscles. It opens the trabecular meshworks around the Schlemm's canal and facilitates the drainage of aqueous humor. This is how it reduces the intraocular pressure and thus treating glaucoma. Because what is happening in glaucoma is increased intraocular tension. So basically we have to decrease that, lessen that, and that is how we are using all these cholinergic drugs like pilocarpine, etc. to treat the glaucoma. So it is rapid, but it is a short duration of action. Now come to anticholinesterases. So if we talk about the mechanism of action of the anticholinesterases, it produces action similar to that of acetylcholine by increasing availability of acetylcholine and inhibiting the enzyme cholinesterase. Thus acetylcholine does not get metabolized and gets accumulated. So we are getting this by the name only, anticholinesterase. So they are just inhibiting the cholinesterase enzymes which are responsible for damaging or destroying the acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft. Now because that is not present, that is being inhibited, so the acetylcholine will not get metabolized and will get accumulated and produce its action. So therefore anticholinesterase mechanism of action, they are also known as indirectly acting cholinergic drugs, because they are not directly just acting similar to acetylcholine or increasing the acetylcholine directly, but they are inhibiting that enzyme which destroys acetylcholine. So therefore they are indirectly acting cholinergic drugs. Next we discuss a type of the anticholinesterase, so that is physostigmine. Physostigmine rapidly absorbed, cross blood-brain barrier, so therefore both central and peripheral effects can be seen. It is used in eye drops. It is used in glaucoma. Not now because it accelerates cataract formation, so therefore it is not used in glaucoma now. And it was also used in atropine poisoning by slow IV infusion. So this was all about the physostigmine. Next is neostigmine. Neostigmine acts by indirect and direct mechanisms. So it is used in post-operative urinary retention, paralytic ileus, myasthenia gravis, and curare poisoning. Let me repeat. Neostigmine acts by indirect and direct mechanisms used in post-operative urinary retention, paralytic ileus, myasthenia gravis, and curare poisoning. So what are the ADRs of the anticholinesterase? There will be increased sweating, salivation, nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, bradycardia, diarrhea, tremors, and hypotension. So these are all the adverse effects of anticholinesterase. Now uses of anticholinesterase or the therapeutic uses. So it is used in eye, where in glaucoma, reverse pupillary dilatation after refraction testing. Myotics are used alternatively with mydriatics to break adhesions between iris and lens. So we'll discuss majorly about glaucoma. This is important. Next, it is also used in myasthenia gravis, used in post-operative urinary retention and paralytic ileus. We just read that neostigmine is responsible for that. Curare poisoning, same. Neostigmine will help in that. Belladonna poisoning, physostigmine will help in that. Alzheimer's disease, donepezil and rivastigmine will help in that. So we'll be discussing about glaucoma, myasthenia gravis, and chronic organophosphate poisoning. So number 1 is glaucoma. In glaucoma, there is damage of the optic nerve, and therefore there is loss of visual function, and there is raised intraocular pressure. So what are the three major characteristics of glaucoma? That number 1, there is damage of the optic nerve. Number 2, therefore because there is damage to the optic nerve, there is loss of the visual functions, and number 3, there is increased intraocular pressure. So these are some drugs which are used in narrow angle and wide angle glaucoma, or acute glaucoma and chronic glaucoma. But mainly the drug of choice are pilocarpine. The myotics used are pilocarpine. Now we come to myasthenia gravis. In myasthenia gravis, there is decrease in NM receptors. So because why? Because antibodies are produced against those NM receptors of NMJ. So it is an autoimmune disorder, and we will be seeing weakness and fatigue. Treatment will be neostigmine, pyridostigmine, and aminonium. So neostigmine and pyridostigmine, remember these. If there is overdose of these drugs, it will cause cholinergic crisis, where there will be severe muscular weakness and neuromuscular paralysis. So in myasthenia gravis, it is an autoimmune disorder. The NM receptors are being decreased because of antibody production. We will find weakness and fatigue. Treatment is neostigmine and pyridostigmine. Overdose will cause cholinergic crisis. So now we come to the last part of this chapter, that is the chronic organophosphate poisoning. What happens in this is that first you have to see the mechanism of action of cholinesterase enzyme. What were cholinesterase enzyme? These were the enzymes which were responsible for depletion of the acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft. They were responsible for damaging them. So the cholinesterases have two sides. One is esteratic site and the other is anionic site. So what happens in COPs? In COP, the organophosphate compounds, they inactivate the cholinesterase enzyme by phosphorylating the esteratic site of the enzyme. So therefore, at the end there will be increase in acetylcholine. So what are such COP compounds? These are all the insecticides, like that is parathion, malathion, difluors, and they inhibit cholinesterases and cause accumulation of acetylcholine. So what are the effects seen in the chronic organophosphate poisoning? Muscarinic effects will be sweating, salivation, lacrimation, increased tracheobronchial secretions, bronchospasm, vomiting, abdominal cramps, meiosis, bradycardia, hypotension, involuntary urination, and defecation. So this is just the ADR of anticholinesterase. Nicotinic effects like twitching, fasciculations, muscle weakness, and paralysis. Central effects will be seen like headache, restlessness, confusion, convulsions, coma, and then death. So if there is prolonged exposure to the OP compounds, it can also cause neurotoxicity. Then the treatment of this COP: remove the contaminated clothes, wash skin with soap and water. Gastric lavage should be continued till the returning fluid is clear. Gastric lavage, in this we clear the stomach of all the toxins, all the foreign toxins and unwanted substances or drugs. This is known as gastric lavage, and we'll do this until and unless we find a fluid that is colorless, that is clear, because while the toxins are released, the color of the gastric lavage will be different, and when all the toxins are cleared, then we'll get a clear fluid. So airway should be also maintained, artificial respiration should be given if necessary. Diazepam should be used cautiously by slow IV injection. Atropine, which is an antagonist, is the first drug to be given. How this atropine works, or what is its mechanism of action, is that it competitively blocks the muscarinic effects of OP compounds. So this is known as competitive antagonism. But atropine is not effective for reversal of neuromuscular paralysis. So atropine, we are using atropine as the first drug because it shows competitive antagonism and it blocks all the effects of the OP compounds. But for the neuromuscular paralysis, we are using oximes, and because they bind with high affinity to the anionic site and dephosphorylate the cholinesterase enzyme, and because of dephosphorylation, they are reactivating the cholinesterase, and these cholinesterase will now deplete the acetylcholine and thus treating the chronic organophosphate poisoning. So this was all about the cholinergic drugs. Thank you, and please do subscribe, please like and comment and share this video. Thank you.